just drove 6 hours to buy this 1993 Toyota pickup for $500. It doesn't run, it doesn't drive, it's got a 3-liter V6, a 5-speed manual transmission, and today I'm on a mission to get it back on the road. The last service record is 15 years ago, so I think we got quite a bit of work on our hands, but I've got over $500 in parts I ordered to hopefully facilitate getting this thing up and going as good as new. So let's get straight into it. First thing first, this was in the passenger seat floorboard. An alternator, I'm assuming for this truck. I think this is why it got parked, but I don't know for sure. So let's pop the hood and see what's going on. Here it is, the legendary 3VZ, 3-point slow, 3-point blow, the worst Toyota engine ever made. Well, we're gonna put that to the test. It's been sitting nearly 15 years. Looks like it got parked for a bad alternator. I'm gonna throw a battery in it and see if it might just fire up. If not, we might even be able to just use the starter to get this thing in the garage and get a little bit further into diagnostics. Like I said, I've got a ton of parts for this thing, so no matter what, we're getting this thing back on the road. Let's go turn the key and see what happens. Everybody said I should have just used starting fluid from the get-go last time instead of trying to get the fuel pump working. So we're just gonna do that this time and skip straight to it. I'm gonna spray some starting fluid straight in the intake and see if this thing fires up. If that ain't enough, I don't know what is. Plug the mass airflow sensor back in. Cool. Well, that's good enough for me. That tells me that it just needs fuel to start. It might need a couple other things, but priority number one is now getting fuel to the engine to see if it'll idle on its own. If we can get that, we'll be in a good spot to get this thing back on the road in no time. Now that we've got this thing in the garage, I've got everything laid out to get this thing completely dialed in. From the really important stuff like a fuel pump to hear it run again, to the mundane like a tune-up and all of the filters for the engine. First thing first, I want to get this fuel pump installed so we can hear this engine run and do a full diagnostic to make sure there are no other major issues. Getting this tank pulled out is pretty straightforward. I just did it on the white truck, same thing. We're gonna pull the filler neck off the bed. I'm gonna then go down there, pull the skid plate off, pull the tank down, disconnect all the lines, yank it out from under the truck. Then we'll pull the pump out, clean the tank out as best we can, put a brand new pump back in, and this thing will be ready to fire up in no time. What the heck? It's the filler neck. Thing is way through. As I get the tank out and prepare to drain it, I start looking inside and realize it's rather crusty. Nothing we can't handle, but it's pretty rough. Root beer brown for gasoline. actually not as bad as the last one. Gonna throw some fresh fuel in this thing, throw a chunk of chain in there, shake it around, and try and get most of it broken up. After a couple cycles of this, we started to get some clear earth fluid out, and it was time to start getting things reassembled. Got the tank cleaned out. Now we got to get a new fuel pump on the sending unit. I'm also just going to clean it up, get the wire wheel out, make it look a little less atrocious, but here in just a second, we should have a new fuel pump, our tank cleaned out, and everything ready to reassemble. I'm gonna throw a new fuel filter on there before we fire it up, just so we're not pushing any gunk into the injectors. And then this thing should fire up and purr like a kitten, because it is still a Toyota. Got it all cleaned up, and it looks fantastic. Well, actually, I just grabbed one off the shelf that's not rusted to crap, and we're gonna use it instead. Mainly because I broke the little plug wire that goes into the fuel pump on that one, and I was gonna have to cut it off of this one, and if I'm doing that, well, I might as well just use this one, it's not rusty. So let's get the new pump installed on here. With the new fuel pump, you always want to replace the fuel sock. Make sure you're getting fresh fuel into the pump, and it's ready to drop into the tank. Tank completely reassembled. We're ready to jump back under the truck and try and get this thing installed. It's completely empty now, which means it's a ton lighter, so we should be back up and in there in no time. All right, yeah, there we go. Fuel tank's in, the skid plates are on, and I'm ready to replace the fuel filter and put fuel in this thing. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh no, it might not be this end. No, I need this. I don't want these, but I need different ones. Run to the parts store later. We've got a proper fuel filter with the inverted flare on the inside instead of one for a banjo bolt. Now we can throw this thing under the truck and be good to go. My bad on ordering the wrong filter. This is what it is. 4. Oh, no smoking zone. Take 2. Got this shoved in here to hold that little flap open. We got gas in this thing. We've got the whole fuel system revamped. I think we're at the point where we're ready to fire it up and hear how it sounds. Hopefully it sounds as good as it did when it was running off starting fluid, and hopefully it stays running longer than like 15 seconds. Well, that's not good. No fuel pump. Immediately going into diagnostic mode, I made sure we had a good fuel pump relay and fuse, and after that, I dug into the dash so I could get to the circuit opening relay for the fuel pump. Tore the entire interior apart. You didn't have audio for that because I'm a dum-dum, and I'm an even bigger dum-dum because for some reason, somewhere between the plug on top of the tank and the fuel pump, there's not a connection. Getting power all the way to the tank, but somewhere in the fuel pump hanger that I installed, I messed up, and it is no longer getting power to the pump. So we have to pull the entire tank out again. All right, let's figure what the flip I did wrong. Hopefully it's just unplugged. I know it's crazy to say, but hopefully it's just unplugged. That would be kind of ideal because then it's just back in and we're good to go. But we'll find out. What the flippin' A? Why is it always something? Pump itself works if it gets power. Now we gotta figure out where we're losing power. This is redonkulous. An hour round trip and $30 later for this plug, which is outrageous. Online, you can get an entire sending unit for $30. Whatever, is what it is. Got this same day. Hopefully we can get this thing actually pumping fuel. This is lesson, bench test stuff. If I would have just put power to this thing and seen if it powered on before installing it, I wouldn't have had to re-pull the entire tank and it wouldn't have been near as big of a deal. But here we are, and I think we've got it solved, hopefully. Just please spin. Make sure this ground is grounded. After facing all the issues I've fought, I am just redoing the entire wiring on this fuel pump hanger to hopefully eliminate any possible future issues. Cool. Now very gently. Feels so good. We got this thing tested. It works from the plug. I'm gonna wrap up the rest of this wiring, heat shrink that, electrical tape everything, get it completely dialed in, throw it back in the tank, get the tank back in the truck. We've been here, we've done this, and then hopefully we can hear this thing fire up. All right, it's 4:02. I'm gonna see how fast I can get this stupid tank installed accurately. That's the key word. Woohoo! I love doing stuff twice. All right, 8 minutes to get this fuel tank installed. Total, including filler neck, all the skid plates, the skid plate for the center carrier bearing on the drive shaft, all of it. Now let's turn the key on and see if this fuel pump actually cycles. I haven't checked the oil. It did build oil pressure, but I haven't looked at it. I think I did at one point, but I don't remember what it looks like. So let's check this oil and see what we're dealing with. Okay, yeah. There's oil. It's got oil. It seems to be semi-decently clean. Clean enough to run it a couple times, make sure this engine seems pretty good. I will put an oil change on it before we do any sort of actual driving. It's a little low on coolant, but that is coolant. That's cool. That's more than the white truck had. So we're already working with a ton more. I think this thing might have genuinely just had an alternator issue. I don't know. The alternator is removed and I have no idea why. Incredibly smooth. The alternator belt is currently just kind of dangling in the engine bay, and I don't want it to get tangled up and start tearing stuff up, but it runs so smooth. Genuinely mind-boggling to me. Just like the white truck, people park these things for crazy reasons. They look at them for 10 years and then they're just done with it. They want it out of their yard. They want a parking space back. They're moving, whatever it may be. The deal has come across. You just gotta look for them. Got myself a little at-home alternator test. Got it hooked up to a battery. We've got a voltmeter here that'll tell us the voltage it's outputting. Impact to make it spin. We're gonna see if it's kicking on and if it's putting any voltage out. So hopefully it's a good alternator and maybe it got pulled for no reason. Who knows? Putting out 15 volts right now. Oh, I guess it doesn't have the charge reference wire. My bench test tells me this thing is putting out voltage. It might be putting out a little bit too much, but I won't really know till it's actually hooked up to the whole system. There's a battery it's charging, and it's not just trying to put out voltage to nothing. Plus the plug has 3 wires coming out of it on the back. One is a constant 12 volt reference to tell the regulator how much to charge. The other one is a signal wire to tell it when to charge. This did not have the wire telling it how to regulate properly. It just had the wire telling it to charge. So bet that's the reason that it was putting out 15 volts instead of the proper 14 volts. It's time to get it thrown back into the truck, which means we got to take quite a bit of the engine bay apart. So while we're in there, I'm also going to go ahead and throw the tune-up on there with the cap, rotors, plugs, and wires, and it should be a ton easier while everything's already partially apart. Oh, is it not the right alternator? This is not the right alternator. That makes so much more sense. It's not the right number of ribs on the pulley. It doesn't tighten enough. It doesn't go the right direction. I'll bet anything this is like a 4-cylinder alternator instead of a 6-cylinder. All right, this is a random alternator off of my shelf. It looks very similar. So I'm gonna throw this bad boy in and see if maybe I had the right one just sitting on the shelf. Oh, that'd be cool. That'd feel good. Oh, for sure, Z's. It adjusts more proper. Are we able to get, oh, that's so cool. The fact that I just happened to have a good alternator on my shelf is awesome. I love stuff like that. It feels so good. And with the alternator wrapped up, it's time to move on to this tune-up. And if you're like me, everything you've ever read or heard about this engine has told you it's overly complicated and an absolute pain in the butt to work on. And I'm here to tell you that's not necessarily the truth. This was a super simple task to get a tune-up on this engine, and although it looks like there's a lot going on, it's really not as complicated as it seems. Timing belt looks brand new, which means I don't have to worry about it. We just got to get this thing tuned up and it should be ready to rip. And before long, this engine bay is looking good, completely wrapped up with a new tune-up and a new alternator. Testing to make sure the new alternator is charging, and it is, but the engine's running funny. Very odd. Wonder if it's blowing gas? We got ourselves a burnout machine in like 10 seconds. Here I got rubber flying on our BFG all-terrain Nautica KO2. It's a KO, a BFG KO. Well, after that very short amount of runtime, there's already a pretty big puddle of oil under the truck. Less than ideal. And you can see right there how wet the bottom of that oil cooler is. It's because, well, that's where our leak's coming from. Which is in a very difficult to get to location on the side of the engine, past the bell housing, under the exhaust. After removing an exhaust heat shield and the rubber inner fender liner, I've got way better access back there to that oil cooler. So I'm gonna pop it off and try and get it resealed. Apparently I didn't hit record, but we've got the seals swapped out. And it seems to have solved our leak, but we're facing a whole nother issue now. This thing won't stay running. It seems to run great when it's running, but our issue is that when I fire it up, it'll only run for 3 or 4 seconds and then it dies. It's almost like the fuel pump isn't staying on. So I dove a little further into that, and since the dash was already torn apart and the circuit open relay was already out, I decided to see if the fuel pump was getting a power signal. The circuit open relay, which is what sends power to the fuel pump, gets its signal from 2 sources. One, the key in the start position, so that it primes the fuel system while you're cranking the engine. 2, the airflow meter on the intake has a flap. When that flap is open, it sends a signal saying that the engine is in fact running, it's sucking in air, and it needs the fuel pump running in order to maintain that. Unfortunately, we're not getting a fuel pump power signal when the engine's running, which leads me to think we're having an issue with our airflow meter. Got a crazy idea. I've got a fire-damaged 4Runner in the backyard, so I'm gonna grab that airflow meter and see if we can possibly get this thing sorted out. Let's show you the issue real quick before we get swapping this airflow meter. You can see the test light on the passenger side of the truck, and we're gonna go ahead and when you turn it on, it turns off, and then the engine dies. And that's what it's been doing and having an issue with, unless I rev it up right from a cold start, which is not something I want to do. So let's get to swapping this airflow meter over, and hopefully that fixes our issue. Let's see if this does anything. Looking at how melted this is kind of insane. If it works, I will be very impressed. But there's only one way to find out. Let's see if this thing stays on. If that test light stays on, this airflow meter is good. We can swap it over to the other plastic intake that's not all melted, and we'll be set and ready to go. What? What? That's insane. I've literally already asked 2 different people for airflow meters because I genuinely did not believe this was even a remote possibility, but I had to try it. What I'm gonna do now is swap the metal airflow meter over to the better plastic housing, and then we'll be good to go. Throw this thing back together and the engine should be dialed in. Kind of nifty, there's these little tabs that were designed to go over, and even if the nut backs all the way off, it can't come off of the stud, so it won't get sucked into your intake. Heck yeah. Now that we've got the engine somewhat sorted, we've got a new mass airflow sensor, we've got our oil cooler leak fixed, we've got a tune-up, plugs, wires, everything to get this thing in tip-top shape. It's time to move on to a couple other things. Most notably, the driver door. The outside door handle is broken. After you open the door like that, if you do jump in, sit down, and shut the door, not only is the interior door handle missing, but the rod that is supposed to come from the door latch to the door handle area is also not even in here. Luckily, I noticed this when I first got the truck, so I did order both exterior and interior door handles. So I'm gonna get this door card pulled apart. We're gonna hope everything is there and nothing major is missing, and we'll get these installed. Finally, I'll be able to actually open the driver's door. very broken. That's unfortunate. Can go see about pulling one off that white truck, I guess. Well, the little stupid little thing this bar goes into wasn't fitting right, and so I actually ended up breaking it, which is less than ideal. But back to the fire damaged 4Runner for a chrome door handle. Luckily, the interior door card was already falling off, so we have easy access. Just got to jump in there, get it unbolted, unconnected, and we should be back in business. Take two with a slightly more beat up door handle. You know, I now realize I bought blue door handles. Interior this thing's gray. Oh well. It's not the right color, but I can order a door handle that is the right color, and the important part is this door opens from the outside and from the inside, and I don't have to worry about fighting my way out. Now that that's taken care of, we have a few more pretty important things to do. Most importantly, this jumbled, disgusting mess of wire that has been like wrapped around the frame under here and actually isn't running to the taillights of any kind. License plate lights and taillight plugs, as well as trailer light plugs and more. So I'm gonna just try and get this all pulled down, assessed, and figure out what goes where. Upon getting it pulled down, I see that most everything has been tapped in with these horrendous T-taps. T-taps are horrible, they're not a real connection, and so I'm gonna cut all of this trailer wiring out. It's also gonna take a fair amount of all of this jumbled mess out of here and clean everything up quite a bit. And with all those random colored wires and trailer wiring out of here, this looks so much better. With all the wiring sorted, I need somewhere for it to go. So we're gonna bust into our taillights, get a taillight in this side, and while we're at it, I'm gonna replace the taillight in that side. So I got some cheapo Amazon taillights for this thing, figuring how bad could you possibly mess them up. Well, when I first plugged it in, it pushed every single pin directly out of the plug because it was just that cheap. It ended up messing up every single pin, so I didn't know what I was gonna do. I ended up cutting a harness off of a busted taillight housing I had that was falling apart, and I'm splicing it in wire by wire. On top of that, when I went to go wire it into this plug, everything was backwards. I wired it exactly as it came out of this plug, but it wasn't working right. The tail lights were actually the reverse lights were the brake lights, and it was just all such a jumbled mess. And then I realized it was backwards. And by that I mean this plug that is obviously designed to click on top. The latch goes there. So those little relief cuts there that it's not perfectly rectangular, yeah, those relief cuts are on the top of this plug, which means this fits together perfectly upside down, and it was wired perfectly upside down. So I'm gonna be putting an OE plug on this one, but on the driver's side, I went ahead and just plugged it in upside down. It didn't push any of the pins out, and everything works perfectly proper. I'm gonna keep it like this. I'm gonna throw a zip tie on there so it can't come apart, but how wild is that they literally put the plug on backwards. All right, got them both working. We've got tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, everything back here is a-okay. Finally, this one's plugged in backwards. That one got completely rewired, but we're finally ready to throw them in and be done with tail lights. Now that we've got this thing pretty well dialed in, it doesn't have a massive oil leak, and it actually stays running, I want to send it through a real heat cycle and make sure there's no issues when it goes through heat cycle. In order to do that, I was going to top it off with coolant, and one of the first things I noticed, this radiator cap's bad. When the radiator cap is on here and you squeeze it, coolant comes out of the overflow. Since I've got a good radiator cap sitting on the shelf, I'm just gonna swap that out. Now we can start this thing up, and as long as it doesn't overheat, start smoking weird or anything like that, I think we have ourselves a dialed in pickup truck that is just about ready to hit the streets again. Considering these things aren't known for being like the smoothest, nicest running engines ever, this thing's running incredibly smooth, especially with 268 1,000 miles on the clock. Time to take this thing for a first test drive. It's been idling for like an hour without any issues. It hasn't overheated, anything like that. So we're gonna take it for a short test drive and see how it does with everything else. This thing feels pretty good. Feels pretty dang good. First drive, clutch feels great. The gearbox feels pretty dang tight. It's got 270,000 miles, so you can't ask for a ton. But we're just gonna take it down the road real quick. These tires are like 20 years old. Don't even wanna mess with those on the highway. Not to mention, I was looking and I think we have 3, maybe 4 different tires on this thing. I know this truck isn't perfect, but man, it looks so good, and I think it came out amazing. I'm excited for where we have to go with this one because we are far from finished. I think this one's gonna turn out sweet. This thing drives so good, and it definitely has 456 gears. After taking it just a little bit, it feels peppy. And these 3 liters weren't ever peppy engines. But we're in Mexico. I don't know many 3 liters that will do a burnout and then chirp the tires into second. Granted, it's on smallish, like stock size tires and 456 gears, but I'm impressed. I'm actually super stoked. This thing runs great, drives good, and as long as we can get it to pass emissions, this thing will be 100% dialed in and daily ready. So we're gonna need to clean this thing up and get it looking the part, but man, I didn't expect this 3 liter to be as nice as it is. I've been a 3 liter hater my whole life. So it's kind of hard for me to admit that this 3 liter runs good, smooth, and is pretty peppy for what it is.